Ricken Financial presents Kickin' with the Rickens, Redefining Retirement. Jerry Ricken and Heidi Ricken Provost want to help you reach the retirement you deserve. Let's build a strategy that gives you the confidence while meeting your financial wants and needs. Meet the team at rickenfinancial.com. Now, Kickin' with the Rickens.
Thanks for subscribing to Kickin' with the Rickens, Redefining Retirement Podcast, rickenfinancial.com. My name is Mark Owens, Jerry Ricken, Heidi Ricken Provost. How are y'all doing?
Hey, Mark.
Doing great. Mark, how you doing?
I am great. Hey, quick question for you, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but I just want to get your opinion. As people who work in the world of finances and wealth management as well, I like to throw the dice. I enjoy going to a casino. What's your thoughts on gambling?
Are you talking about me personally or what advice I would give a client?
Client.
Okay. If you have a budget and your entertainment budget contains that amount of spending, then yes. If it doesn't, and if it goes beyond that budget, then no. It all depends on your risk tolerance.
And one piece of advice I would give a client, if you plan on gambling and you think you can take a gambling loss on your tax return, please come see me and let's look at the numbers, because you may or may not be able to take a gambling loss. And if you have a gain, you may or may not be able to offset it, because we have seen some clients who thought that their gambling loss would offset their gambling wins. And that was not the case on their taxes. And it can create a wealth of issues, especially when you're Medicare age 65 or beyond.
Okay.
You might have to pay more in your premiums.
If it's in your entertainment budget, keep it within that budget. And don't,
and if it's
don't
for
veer outside of
entertainment,
that. If it's
have
for
fun.
entertainment,
Right.
yes.
Like, I'm not going to gamble.
If you're trying to win money just to win money, and you're saying, "Oh my gosh, I need to replace my paycheck," that's not a plan.
No. A retirement plan should not be a slot machine.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's not a plan. That's a wish. We know what happens with wishes.
What happened with wishes?
You know, when I was a kid, my dad said you might as well wish in one hand and wish in the other, because you're going to end up with something in one hand, and you can't wish for something. You have to plan for it. You have to execute the plan to get what you want. Amen. So never wish for something.
So a lot of people go to a casino thinking and wishing they're going to hit the jackpot and retire early. Not so much. There's something called reality in the way, but there are some pros and cons of retiring early, and that's what we're going to talk about here this week with Kickin' with the Rickens. So let's start with it. What are some of the pros and cons? Let's talk about retiring early.
I think it's fitting, by the way, that you mentioned gambling, because my favorite human being, who happens to be pictured right behind me, he's now my favorite guardian angel.
I just quoted him, by the way.
Yeah, you did. My grandpa, Willie Ricken, Mr. W.G. Ricken, greatest human to ever exist, in my opinion. He retired early. He retired at 56 from the fire department, and he lived till a week shy of 95. He spent a lot of time in his retirement with his friends gambling for fun in Oklahoma at the different casinos. So
I know I liked him.
He took the right gamble when he retired early, though. But I've been thinking a lot about him lately, because his birthday comes up around every tax season every year for me on April 8th. And we're actually currently planning a client appreciation event on April 8th, because it happens to be when the eclipse is happening. So we've been talking a lot about the date April 8th lately, and it just brings Grandpa Willie to mind. And then, we're hyper focusing on this event the other day, and I leave and I go to the grocery store, and the first thing I see is a gargantuan stack of chicken and the biscuit crackers. And when was the last time?
All-time snack.
Oh my God, it was his favorite thing in the world. But when the hell was the last time you saw a display of chicken and a biscuit? Because why is that even a thing? And so I was like, really, Grandpa? Of course I'm spending all this time talking about you, so I got to throw some chicken and a biscuit in my face.
He knows.
Oh yeah, but he did it right, because when he retired, he had his bases covered for the pitfalls that unfortunately most people fall into when they retire early. And early for me can be one of two ages. Either you retire before the age of 59 and a half, and that would be early retirement, because you have a tax penalty if you touch your IRA funds, whether they're Roth or traditional 401k, whatever. If you touch those assets before 59 and a half, there's a tax penalty. Or before age 65, because if you have blood pressure and you're age 65, you're eligible for Medicare. So if you retire before 65, you got to cover healthcare. And if you retire before 59 and a half, got to have a plan in place for where you're going to draw income.
When you talk about the 59 and a half, a lot of people don't focus on that. We are big proponents of Roth, because we believe if you don't pay taxes in retirement, that's a great, 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 great thing. But 59 and a half is a key age. We have a lot of people, especially the younger crowd, come in and say, hey, we want to retire before 59 and a half. We want to retire before age 60. We want to retire at 55 or 50. And God bless you if you can do that. But the thing you need to find out is, what is your income plan going to be to replace that income until you're 59 and a half or until you're 65, and what's your healthcare plan? But it's the whole 59 and a half is a key age because of the tax issues. And some of the things you can do are you have to plan for that. If you want to retire before 59 and a half, how do you avoid that tax penalty?
And you can avoid tax penalties always.
Yes.
So you got to plan for that to avoid those
you have
penalties.
To plan for that. And, we've talked a lot about a lot of different plans that are out there, but you have to have something outside of the qualified world, outside of IRAs, 401ks, Roths,
403Bs, 457s,
all those things. You have to have an income plan outside of that, because we do not want you to suffer tax penalties when you can avoid them.
And you can do that a couple different ways. But if you plan early enough in advance, so say someone in their 20s, 30s, 40s comes to meet with us and they're like, hey, guess what? When I'm 55, I am out of here. I saw my parents, and we actually have this conversation with people a lot, and we've had this recently. I see my parents work until their 70s, and they've scrimped and they've saved and they're doing all this. And I don't want to work that hard when I'm that old. I want to work really hard right now, but I want to enjoy my retirement years before I'm in that horizontal club we talked about before, where you're not out until you're out horizontally. And they're like, I don't want to spend my retirement old and decrepit. I want to spend it young and vibrant if I can. So like, how do I plan for that? And the key is that you have to have your bases covered to draw some stream of income before age 59 and a half that's not going to have tax penalties. So Dad, what can that look like?
The one thing that we don't want it to look like is, would you like fries with that? because we don't want you to have to go back. If you do retire early, we don't want you to have to go back and earn extra income when you don't want to be working. So what we can do, one of my favorite plans, especially for people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, even 50s, is a tax-free retirement plan. And you take a portion of your income, you put it over, and it's an income, it's a life insurance based product, but it can provide tax-free income. So not only do you not have tax penalties, you don't even have taxation when you're drawing this income. And you can draw that at any age. You can use it for college planning for your kids. You can use it to buy a down payment on a home. You can use it to downsize. You can use it to right size. You can use it to renovate your kitchen. It's basically your own plan, and it's your own personal bank account, if you will. And that's an item that we could use between getting to that gap. Then you can turn that income off, draw the streams of income when you're 59 and a half, turn it back on later. There's all kinds of flexibility there.
One of the things you have to have in order for a plan like that to work is time. So you don't have the time horizon of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years to retire. And you might be playing a little catch up right now, and you're like, okay, well, how am I gonna have a stream of income or some form of money or an asset to touch before 59 and a half if all my money has been funneled into the retirement savings that I have through work or whatnot?
Right.
Well, you can also invest, by the way, and we can help you manage your money in the market. So you might have an individual brokerage account and an individual savings account outside of whatever you're doing at work. If you're going to do something like that and you have a match available in your 401k, 403b, whatever your situation is for savings for retirement at work, always make sure you get your match and the most amount of match possible from your company, because that's free money.
Never leave free money on the table.
You never leave free money on the table, but any money beyond that, you can also just save and invest it with us, and you can be set for the future too that way, because you can touch your investments in the future with some other forms of tax. You're probably going to have capital gains or dividends or interest or whatnot in the future, but that's another stream of income you can touch, is having an asset that's invested in the market for the future too.
And all your eggs in one basket has been said thousands upon millions, probably millions upon millions of times. But that's what we're talking about. Not putting all your eggs in one basket in the deferred or the Roth world or the 401k world or the IRA world. Making sure that you have different tax strategies, if you will, whether that's an investment account, which is a brokerage account, which is managed money, whether that's a tax-free income plan with life insurance, or whether that's your long-term savings with respect to retirement funds, like long-term savings in the form of IRAs and 401ks and Roths. You need to prioritize those in different buckets. We call that, we have 4 different kinds of cash or income that we talk about, 4 different kinds of money. There's free money, there's tax-free money, there's tax-deferred money, there's taxable money. We want you to have money in all those buckets, because you have flexibility then. But the way to do that is to plan. You just can't figure that out by yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
Or if
But
you can't
that's
figure it out
why,
by yourself, you need to.
you mentioned those
you need to
buckets.
plan.
That's why we always tell the first conversation we have with people who are in their working years is, what is your match at your job if you have one? If you do have one, make sure you get that match, because that's free money. But anything beyond that, let's come up with a plan for. Or you might be an independent contractor. You might not be a W-2 employee, and you don't have a company to fall back on to have savings in the future. We can help you come up with a plan for saving yourself then too, because putting whatever your contributions are that you can put into an IRA each year, that's not going to be nearly enough to save for the future. Even if you start that at age 18 and you've been an independent contractor your entire working years, you got to have some form of money saved for the future.
And we even have plans where you can put money in and it'll be matched for a number of years as well. So don't discount the fact that just because your employer doesn't have a match, that there aren't matches out there that are available in the marketplace.
Every single person's situation is different. So like my grandpa, he retired at 56 and he had income coming in from farming, but also from their pensions because they were able to touch it earlier. So he was solid on his income plan. But my grandma was also still working at that point in time, and she was covering the health insurance. So that's why they were in good shape, because health insurance, especially nowadays, it can be a huge nut to crack if you want to retire before the age of 65. And so when people are telling us what their goals and wishes are, we're not here to change that for you. We're here to help you meet it. So if your goal is to retire before age 65, and that means both of you, or if you're a single person, retire before age 65, let's talk health insurance, because we want to make sure you have a plan in place to cover the cost of it.
And we want to expose you to what plans are available in that situation, because the plan you may have had with your employer isn't the plan you're going to have after you leave that employer.
Right.
And there are things like COBRA and those kinds of things, but they can be very expensive, but so are plans individually. But we need you to understand what's available and what those plans can and cannot cover.
You can't just say, I want to retire at 62 because I want to retire at 62. That's great. You can retire at 62, but what are you going to do for 3 years to cover your health insurance? Because your premiums are probably going to be somewhere around $1,000 a month. They're up to $1,000 per person per month in just health insurance premiums. And if you think about that for 3 years, that's a lot of money to cover in 3 years. So you've got to have a plan of some sort in place.
And that's just the first of your out of pockets. It doesn't even cover your copays and all those kinds of things, your deductible.
You said your grandfather, he retired at 56. Was there anything about retiring at such an early age? Did he get bored retiring that early, or was he super?
Please.
I guess not.
My grandpa, actually, let me take a step back here. He retired from the fire department at 56. My grandpa did not retire, as in not working, until
3 weeks before he passed.
Yeah, 3 weeks before his death. So he was actually the oldest living employee of the Archdiocese of Wichita when he died, because he still, in his 90s, he still took care of the parish cemetery in my dad's hometown of Garden Plain, Kansas. And I will never forget, there was one day we were there and he was like, "Kid, I'm going to die." And I'm like, "Oh my God, Grandpa, what is wrong with you?" And he was like, "I think I'm actually going to die tonight. I'm going to have a heart attack." And he was probably 93 and a half, 94 at the time. And I'm like, "Why do you think you're going to have a heart attack?" And he's like, "My chest hurts so bad. I don't know what the hell's going on." And I'm like, "Well, what'd you do today?" And he's like, well, Junior was gone, so I had to do all the weed whacking." He then proceeds to tell me he spent 8.5 hours weed whacking that day. And I'm like, "Grandpa, if I spent 8.5 hours weed whacking in my teens, I would think I was going to die when I sat down that night." Like, dude. So he never actually could sit still. He was incapable of that.
Mark, he had several different careers during and after his stint with the fire department. He was still a part-time farmer and would help everybody out in that regard. He ran the road grader. He painted houses. He sold car wax. He sold insurance, as we talked about earlier in an earlier episode. He did all kinds of different things.
He owned a gas station.
He owned
one
a
time
gas
too, yeah.
station for a hot minute.
He was truly
the entrepreneur of all entrepreneurs.
Oh, absolutely.
And he also was a bootlegger as well. So,
well, you know.
that.
So I guess bored may have not been the right term to use.
No. He did all sorts of different things.
The funny thing is he didn't have to do any of those to make ends meet, though. He just couldn't sit still. He was still capable of being retired from 56 until a week shy of 95. Every year when his tax return would be done, we would look at his pension 1099-R, and he would say, "Kid, you got to look at this." He had only contributed
like $4,300 in his career.
Yeah, it was less than $5,000 that he had contributed into the pension fund in his career. And he retired at 56. And he kept saying, "These actuaries are just praying for me to die. Because, kid, look at this. They paid me over $300,000 out in my pension."
Quite an investment.
You often talk about
we all want to be in that outlier.
Amen. The go-go, the go slow, and the no-go. There was never a no-go.
There was never no-go.
Oh,
no.
And my favorite saying, one of them, because there are quite a few Grandpa Willie-isms you cannot share on air. My favorite that he used to say all the time is, "Kid, age is just a number. You're only as old as you act." And that is so true, because he was a very young 94-year-old until
he was a perpetual teenager.
Until he wasn't, and then he was gone. At 93, I will never forget, one of my aunts called and was like, "Dad was seen on a riding lawnmower last night at like midnight." And we were all like, "What do you mean?" And he was partying with the 20-year-olds when he was in his 90s in town. And he had a little too much to drink and needed to be taken home. And some 20-something-year-old chick sticks him on her riding lawnmower on the back and drives him home so that he can go to bed.
My idol.
The original Uber, the John Deere Uber right there.
That's exactly right.
That's a life to strive for right there. The tax-free retirement plan is something that the team at Ricken Financial want to sit down with you and have a conversation about. Or what'd you call them? The isms, the
Grandpa Willie-isms.
Willie-isms. Or maybe you just want to have some of those that we can't quite say here on the podcast. So RickenFinancial.com for more information. Well, thank you so much for the education, the information here on another edition of Kickin' with the Rickens. Again, RICKEN, RickenFinancial.com. Before we get out of here, be happy, behave, or
be gone.
Thanks for listening. This has been Kickin' with the Rickens, redefining retirement.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Ricken Financial LLC. Ricken Financial LLC is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth LLC, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Ricken Financial LLC are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Ricken Financial LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Ricken Financial LLC.
Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA.